What's up, guys? It's Command here, and we're here with the very first episode of Zero to Hero, a brand new RuneScape series I'm trying my hand at that's all about my journey as a PvMer in RuneScape, all the way from my very humble beginnings of a zero, or maybe a scrub, depending on who you ask, all the way to a hero, or, in my head, the single greatest PvMer RuneScape has ever seen. Now, that's a little far-fetched, I know. It's supposed to be, because I don't think I will ever become even close to the best PvMer in RuneScape. I've seen some people play. I've seen some of the good people play. I don't even understand what 4-ticking is, so just to put things into perspective, but my current skill level as a RuneScape player is somewhere in the level of Marginal. So as you can see here, this is my normal ranged setup. I have 2 Ascensions, which is, I guess, a fairly decent start, but I'd say pretty basic in terms of high-tier PvM. I don't have an SGB, but I do have an EOF with a Dark Bow in it. I've got Fleeting Boots, Nightmare Gauntlet, and Augmented Pernex. So I think that's a good start as a PvMer, if you're doing mid-tier to higher level. So that's what I've got. And with this gear, this series is going to follow my journey to become the very best. I'm going to cover all of my upgrades. I'm going to try to cover the drops I get, what I spend them on, how I improve, and I still have a ways to go. I don't have T99 prayers. I don't have Greater Ricochet. I don't have the upgraded Dazing Shot. Clearly, no ECB, Elite Serenic. There's tons of stuff that is on the list to upgrade to, and hopefully we'll get there some point in the near future. Hopefully not too far in the future, but you guys are going to go on this journey with me. I'm going to try and keep you up to date with my greatest failures, my greatest triumphs, and everything in between, and hopefully keep it a little bit interesting in the process. So here's the thing about me. I convince myself more than a little bit that I am a good PvMer. So last week, I managed to do a full hour of Nex, and I got a decent time, solo, for someone with Ascensions, and I was really proud of myself. And then this happened. And then this. And then that. Now, the thing is, about those slimes, alright, in my defense, and I really have to make a case here, someone at Jagex may or may not have fouled up the damage calculations here. I'm no mathematician, definitely not an expert, but I decided to crunch the numbers here for just a moment. And, 1 plus, again, carry the 4, and, okay, so I think this is the equation that someone at Jagex came up with for the damage on these slimes, and something seems a little wrong, in relation to that, because if I've died to the slimes in ED2 more than I've died to the bosses, somewhere, someone might have made a mistake, but I'm no expert, so let's move on. And we are here in Elite Dungeons 2 for the very first episode of Zero to Hero, my RuneScape series on PvM. This is a great place to start this series for a number of different reasons. I've given this a lot of thought, and I just felt like this was the perfect place to get started. First off, it is probably one of the best looking areas in all of RuneScape. The dungeon is absolutely gorgeous. The enemies are gorgeous, the loot is great if you happen to be lucky enough to get something, and you make some pretty good consistent money even if you don't get a Codex drop. Especially for the learners, there is a lot here for you. If you're just starting out in PvM, learning to solo this dungeon or even duo it with a friend is a great way to start. A lot of the enemies, a lot of the bosses, there's mechanical intricacies here that if you learn and practice can help you improve, and you can apply to a ton of the other bosses in RuneScape. This is one of the reasons I'm here. I'm looking to shore up my skills. I'm looking to make sure that I hit those rezos on time, making sure I hit the devotions on time, and that I'm pumping out as much DPS as is humanly possible. Now in this video, I am going to include some of the trash in the dungeons, the reason being that I want to take some time to talk to you guys about what you can expect from this series, but I promise you, most of the time, you're just going to be seeing those straight boss fights, and we're going to be talking about the improvements in PvM, things to aim for, mechanics, loot drops, and most importantly, getting from that 0 to that hero status. Ideally, as we get better and better at the dungeon, as we get better and better at every boss, I will be putting out a video guide that just shows you all of the mechanics, teaches you the best way to run the boss, goes through both low gear and high gear setups, and give you guys a ton of good RuneScape content to get into. So we're just now resetting after we reach the first boss so we can go in fresh for the kill, and we're starting off with Astelarin. So here we are, we're fighting Astelarin, the first major boss in Elite Dungeon 2. I say major because the dungeons do have mini bosses that drop 5k dungeoneering tokens, and we're aiming to hit all of those in this run today, as well as in all of our runs, because frankly, dungeoneering tokens are hard to get, and I personally hate dungeoneering. So if the choice is mini bosses or floors, I will take mini bosses every day of the week. So we've got this boss down to a near science. In fact, we've improved since I recorded this video with a really interesting and simple stupid method that I'm hoping to release a guide on in the near future. But we're able to down this boss, I think, at around the 1 minute 15 second mark, so it's pretty easy. Ideally, if you can do it with a single white hole solo, that's what you're really aiming for. Now, he does have a chance to drop the first Codex in Elite Dungeon 2. It's not the most valuable drop if you get it. It's pretty decent if you get it doubled, but it's not as good as the ones that you're going to get off Veraclith and the Blackstone Dragon. So he goes down at around the minute 15 mark, and of course we can see we are just not lucky enough to get a Codex. But why would we be? I don't know about your guys' RNG, but frankly, 9 out of 10 times I feel like the RuneScape gods just hate my soul. So now that the first boss is down, there's no need to reset the rest of the dungeon until the next boss is fairly easy. As long as you still have some anti-fire that you can use and maybe even a bit of food, you really don't have to worry about it, you can just go. If you have the opportunity, there is a chest upgrade you can buy after you finish Curse of the Black Stone, which not only gives you the double loot chance at bosses, but also lets you bank at those chests in the dungeon. So that is a huge upgrade, so worth it. The QOL on that is amazing, and if you're anything like me and you like optimizing, you like drop cleaners, you like making life easy and good, you absolutely should make it a priority, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of elite dungeons. So here we are, we hit our first mini boss of this run. They take a little longer to kill, but they still don't do a ton of damage. They're not too difficult, so they're always worth taking the time to down them if you can. Some people skip them, but I'm just a huge fan of those dungeoneering tokens, so I will take them every single time. Now overall, in this series, I want to take a moment and talk about some goals. So given my current setup, on top of just getting better overall, I'm hoping to make my next big upgrade Greater Ricochet. Now that is somewhere in the range of 700 to 800 mil, so that's what we're hoping for. We're going to try and get there any way we can, be it Elite Dungeon 2, next, Vindy. It doesn't matter as long as the gold comes from boss kills, as long as it comes from PvM, it is fair game insofar as I am concerned. After Greater Ricochet, we're probably going to go for a T99 prayer and then close it out with ECB. Once all that's done, we'll look at other upgrades like armor. Not too concerned one way or the other, we'll get there eventually. Now normally there is a way that you can skip these spiders here, but unfortunately we aggroed them. Maybe it was a bad spawn, maybe we're just bad. I'm not willing to say one way or the other what it was. Now you'll notice here on screen we do have a mini boss spawn, but unfortunately I am just so blind sometimes. I live life with a set of blinders on, and I don't notice it, so we kill the mobs and we walk right past the thing. I guess no harm done, but it would have been nice to get those tokens in. So we're heading to the second boss in Elite Dungeons 2, and on the way, once again, we get to a spot here where you can see we have both the original mini-boss that we saw spawn. It was on screen a little bit earlier, but we also had another boss spawn and just didn't notice it, still living with those blinders on, and we're on the way to Veraclith. So, this stretch of the dungeon is very easy, it's not too difficult, you just really have to put the time in, do the DPS, and get to the next boss. So here we are on Veraclith, the second boss in Elite Dungeon 2. This boss is regarded by some people to be one of the easiest bosses in the dungeon. I personally disagree, I feel like that's Astelarin. But he does have a lot of mechanical depth. The mechanics can be fairly forgiving at times, but they still have at least one near insta-kill mechanic, not quite as bad as the Acid Spider on Rax, but it's definitely up there, so you want to make sure that you avoid it. I included this kill in this video because you're going to see exactly how dangerous that mechanic can be. In just a little bit, my duo partner Squishy is going to go down thanks to the AoE on one of the eggs. So as you can see, even when you're experienced, even when you're maxed like he is, it can take you out. It's definitely one of those mechanics to keep an eye out for. So right over here, the egg spawns, I go to grab my egg, Squishy goes to grab his egg, I go to disperse the energy right away. He unfortunately surges in the wrong direction, doesn't have enough time to get to the egg and disperse the energy, and as you can see, the AoE goes off and it kills him right behind Veraclith. So now I'm left to finish this boss on my own. Unfortunately, it is scaled up for 2 people, so it is just going to take a little bit of time for me. Overall, mechanically, this boss isn't too difficult, and being that it is the second boss in ED2, it still also has a chance to drop a Codex, which is just a huge drop if you can get it. Not as good as the one you get from Blackstone Dragon, but still way better than the first boss, and it's something that we're hoping for on this kill. This is a boss that we will be releasing a guide on, hopefully in the near future, for solo players, because it is such an interesting fight. It takes some time, but it involves a lot of mechanics. It forces you to make sure that you're rezoing properly to keep your health up, and if you're mixing your rezos with your devotions and you're doing it properly, honestly, this fight is golden for a number of different reasons, but mostly because you can do the majority of the fight without consuming just about any food whatsoever, so it's definitely a way to go. If you haven't done this dungeon yet, and you've been giving thought to doing ED2 recently, or you're watching this video and you think that maybe you want to give it a go, I have to say the best advice I can give you is to make sure that your auto retaliate is off. I hope you can see that mine is in fact off. There is a reason for that. It's because when those eggs come down, if you get hit and then you auto retaliate, you can get dragged out of the zone where you can pick the egg up, and it'll go off and kill you, just like happened to my duo partner. So it's something to keep an eye out for. It's going to happen to everyone sometimes, but if you can remember, just a nice little pro tip here, make sure that you do have your auto retaliate off. So as you can see, I am not the best PvMer in the world. I still make a ton of mistakes. I'm really hoping to be able to refine this boss down, get the kill time down. I don't even know what a really good time at Veraclith is. If anyone knows what a good time for solo Veraclith is, please take a moment, drop it down in the comments down below, or maybe even just what your personal solo or duo or trio times are, just to give me a sense of what we're looking at. Plus, it's always nice to get a bit of conversation going. Now, this is that obligatory period where I'm going to take a moment and ask you that if you want to get involved with my community, if you want to play together, PvM together, talk about games, do anything at all, I do have my Discord link down in the description. That is the Codex Review Discord link. My channel posts primarily game reviews, but I am going to be doing this RuneScape series as well. So if you're interested, if you want to join the conversation, feel free to hop in. Feel free to drop a comment down below. So here we go, we kill Veraclith, and of course, we're again not lucky enough to get a Codex drop. Now, we did get Onyx Dust. It's not too bad. Onyx Dust is actually fairly decent because you can use it to make an Onyx, which you can recharge your Ring of Death with, which is just a huge QOL upgrade. And like I said earlier, I'm really lazy when it comes to doing a lot of things the right way. I don't like switches. I think they're a giant pain. While I can see the use of something like a planted feet switch, and it's something that I'm going to be adding to my list soon, I have chosen to turn my Luck of the Dwarves into a relic power, so I can just camp my Ring of Death, and that's my solution to RuneScape. Now over here, if you're ever wondering what the deal is with the dragon behind the gate, let me just tell you, it's because he is an asshole. He's locked up because he's just a really bad guy. You don't want to be dealing with him. And if you don't believe me, you can just ask that Onyx dragon right over there. He'll let you know he's not a nice guy to be spending time with. So while this trash is largely unremarkable in ED2, you do have the benefit of these Hydrix and Onyx dragons, which do have a chance to drop completed Onyxes, and that's just huge. So they're always worth downing. Even the ones that are out of the way, like that Onyx dragon earlier, you can always just kill that one there. So here we are, we're on Blackstone Dragon, the final boss of Elite Dungeon 2. I'm cutting to about the midpoint of the fight because it's just a really long fight. It takes forever, and if you don't know what's going on, it can be a bit of a mess on screen. It is another one that I plan on having a guide out for sometime soon. Right here, this is a moment of sheer terror. What you're seeing on screen is what it's like for two grown men to experience terror on such a level that they scream and shriek like two little girls. I would have included the recording of both of us shrieking as soon as that fire appeared on top of us with no warning whatsoever, but the reality is that both, for two reasons, I'm not going to. The first is, if I did that, you guys definitely would not be watching any more of my videos, and you'd be for sure smacking on that dislike button. And second, if I were to include a shriek like that and put it in your ears, YouTube may very well ban me for crimes against humanity. So we're just finishing out this kill. It's almost done. It's fairly routine, even though it takes a long time. You just have to stay out of the blue fire. There's a couple of mechanics to be mindful of, but overall it's nothing too difficult. Blackstone Dragon does drop one of the most valuable codexes, in fact the most valuable codex in Elite Dungeon 2. If you can get it doubled, it's even more cost-wise, which is great for a duo because you keep one, you give one to your friend, and it's a nice even split. Otherwise, we tend to just keep what's in our chest, and it's not a problem. ED2 is a great dungeon to run solo or duo, and I hope you guys take a look at it. I hope that if you haven't done it before and you're seeing this video now, that it looks interesting enough and this grabs your attention and you decide to give it a go, because you really won't be disappointed if you do. So very soon here, Blackstone Dragon's going to be going down, and we're going to see what we happen to get loot-wise. But I want to talk a little bit more about upgrade order. So there's a couple of things that we need to work on, or rather I need to work on for this guide. So getting better at PvM is not just a function of gear. There's a lot of different factors. There's gear that you need to upgrade to get better. In the shortlist for me, I really need a planted feet switch. That's a big thing that I need to include in my setup, and that just increases the duration of your death swiftness, which is just a huge ability for DPS. In addition to the death swiftness planted feet switch, I need to get myself greater ricochet and some T99 prayers in the short term, both because they're cheaper than ECB and also because they're just great upgrades to have just about everywhere, especially if you're ranging. So we do see here Blackstone Dragon goes down, and unfortunately the loot gods say no. There's no codex for us on this run, so not a great run, but it was a good place to start this series as any other, and hopefully we're going to be getting this down to a science soon, decreasing those kill times, and we'll get some video guides out if you happen to be a new player, or if you're just interested on going through this journey with me. Now in terms of short-term goals, you're going to see right here, my chest is at around 18 mil in terms of like value, and that is significant because I have made a commitment not to loot this chest until I can get a codex drop. I don't know how big it's going to get. I don't know how fat the stack is going to be. Hopefully we'll get a codex soon, but if not, it doesn't matter to me if this chest is at 500 mil in terms of value. It's not getting looted until we have a codex inside of it.